Then Joseph, leaning over his father's face, wept and kissed him. He commanded his servants, who were physicians, to embalm his father. So they embalmed Israel. They took 40 days to complete this, for embalming takes that long, and the Egyptians mourned for him 70 days. When the days of mourning were over, Joseph said to Pharaoh's household, "If I have found favor with you, please tell Pharaoh that my father made me take an oath, saying, 'I am about to die. You must bury me there in the tomb that I made for myself in the land of Canaan. Now let me go and bury my father, then I will return.' So Pharaoh said, 'Go and bury your father in keeping with your oath.'" Down to 14. After Joseph buried his father, he returned to Egypt with his brothers and all who had gone with him to bury his father. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said to one another, "If Joseph is holding a grudge against us, he will certainly repay us for all the suffering we caused him." So they sent this message to Joseph. "Before he died, your father gave a command. Say this to Joseph: 'Please forgive your brothers' transgressions and their sin, the suffering they cause you. Therefore, please forgive the transgressions of the servants of the God of your father.'" Joseph wept when their message came to him. His brother also came to him, bowed down before him, and said, "We are your slaves." But Joseph said to them, "Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You planned evil against me. God planned it for good, to bring about the present result, the survival of many people. Therefore, don't be afraid. I will take care of you and your children." And he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. This is the word of the Lord.
I'm going to test y'all this morning. How many of y'all remember the Miley Cyrus song from quite a while back called "The Climb"? All right, good. I know some of you were scared which song I was going to ask about. I'm not sure why I'm ending our Genesis series with a Miley Cyrus illustration, but here we are. So if you know the song, it's built on this sentiment that it's not ultimately about the destination, but about the journey. Ain't about how fast I get there. Ain't about what's waiting on the other side. It's the climb, right? And the sentiment might be sweet, but if I'm honest, I completely disagree. Like, to me, there is nothing worse than a long journey where the destination does not match the effort that it took to get there. I was with one of our global partners last year, and we got to visit the city of Petra. And so it was beautiful, and we were like, hey, we want to see the full thing. And it was like a 5-mile trek, all uphill. I don't know how many thousands of steps. And so we're like, we're going to go do it. Supposedly, it was supposed to be this beautiful view. And so about 3 miles in, I was like, this thing better be worth it. Like, we almost gave up and turned back around, and we kept on. And thankfully, in that case, it was. We got there, and we were like, okay, we're glad we did that. Probably wouldn't do it again, but I'm glad we did it, right? When the glory of the destination matches or exceeds the difficulty of the journey, it is worth it. It's like taking a long drive down to the beach, and you finally get there, you make it, and it's just walking up to the sand for the first time, and you see the vastness of the ocean, and you're like, okay, that 6-hour car ride with screaming kids was worth it, right? It's a beautiful sight. And so this kind of like satisfaction at the end of a journey, honestly, is how I kind of feel every time we come to the end of a book that we've been in for a long time. Many of you might not even know, we started back in early 2024 in January, first Sunday. We started in Genesis chapter 1, and today we're closing it out by looking at the very end, chapter 50. And what's interesting about going through the book of Genesis, as we close it, it's really just the beginning. It is kind of this foundation and the beginning of the bigger story of the scriptures that God is telling from Genesis to Revelation. And so my hope for you is that it has encouraged you, it has equipped you, its significance and foundational nature, that it's caused us to see more of the beauty and the bigness of God. And my ultimate hope is that I hope that it's reminded you how good God really is. So I'm excited to wrap this up this morning. Like I said earlier, my name is Joel. Excuse my voice. I'm going to blame it on allergies, but I also might have been yelling all day yesterday at a baseball game till like, I don't know, 10:45 at night, I think was what time the game ended. So that time of year. It was fun though. We won, so it made the journey worth it, right? If we had lost, I'd be like, this was not worth it to be here all day. So anyway, so yeah. Specifically this week, I want to just quickly say thank you. Like, I have been filled with gratitude for and joy for my partnership with you guys to get to just be a part of this journey, to be partnered in the faith. The way Paul talks about it to the churches is like, it's this partnership, like we're in this together. And so I just want to say thank you, like from our global partners scattered around the world, to each of you gathering week to week, and then the stuff that I don't even get to be a part of in the day-to-day, the Monday through Saturday. Like my heart is overwhelmed with love and gratitude. So truly, I'm honored to be a fellow member and a pastor. I want to say thank you for that privilege. And so, it's a joy to be a part. So my plan for today is to keep it as simple as possible. We're going to start by just doing a very quick, just overall review since we're wrapping up the book today. And then we're going to work our way through chapter 50, just sitting in the story. And then I'm going to kind of end by just pointing out 3 transformative truths about God that we learn not only from this chapter, but really from the entire book. This chapter in many ways is summing up the themes of the entire book of Genesis. And so that's kind of the plan. So you'll remember that we started with Genesis in the beginning, right? With God bringing light from darkness, order from chaos, something from nothing, and everything that he made with the word of his mouth, he called the Hebrew word tov, or good. It's this concept of goodness and beauty. And the whole point of the creation of the Garden of Eden was for him to dwell with the apex of his creation, which was humans who reflected God's image. We were supposed to reflect this, dwell together, and spread this goodness, this tov, this life to the ends of the earth. And unfortunately, in Genesis 3, we saw it wasn't enough to reign alongside God and with God. Humans wanted to be God. And so giving into this temptation brought sin and this idea of ra, the Hebrew word ra, so tov and ra, evil and good into the world. It brought evil into the world. They wanted to determine good and evil for themselves, apart from their creator, instead of trusting God to define it. And this leads to a fracturing and division. We see fracturing between humans and the earth. It becomes complicated. The ground is cursed. Humans with each other, right? Cain and Abel, and killing brothers. And then the biggest thing is fracturing between humans and God, as humans for their own good are placed outside the garden. But there's this hope of this curse being broken, this serpent crusher. And so we have that theme set up, but the impact of sin is felt immediately. Raw and wickedness, it floods the earth, right? We see that in the Noah story. The whole of creation, it's this decreation story. Everything's just kind of being undone, and Noah and his family are the ones rescued through it. And there is this hope. His story ends. Maybe he'll be the one who will bring us comfort, is the word used there, or relief, nakam is the Hebrew word, from the curse. Is he the one? But he reveals himself to just be another flawed human as well. And so the story continues. Who's the chosen curse breaker? Who is the chosen comfort bringer? Then we see Abraham called out, chosen. Through you, all the world will be blessed. And in spite of his family's great dysfunction and deceit, which we see over and over as a pattern, God is still with them. God is with Abraham and his descendants, Isaac and Jacob, and eventually his 12 sons. And that kind of leads us up to the story, and all that drama, it leads us to what we've been in recently. Looking at Joseph and his brothers, the sons of Jacob, and we see the end of Jacob's life. The first half of chapter 50 is recording Jacob's burial process, his passing off the scene. We've seen it coming, right? When he blessed his sons, he knew his time was near. But through it all, he dies with the trust that God will care for him even in his death. In verse 1 of chapter 50, it's just kind of what could seem to be this narrative note, but Joseph leans over his father's face and he weeps and he kisses him. And it's interesting because we see Jacob's tumultuous journey end with this incredible kiss of love and grace. As his son, who he never thought he would see again, is there by his side at death. His story started with, you might remember, a kiss of deceit, as he attempted to trick his father into getting some earthly blessing instead of trusting that God would give the greater heavenly blessing. But mercifully, by grace alone, Jacob still receives favor and love at the end of his journey, tangibly in the form of his son and this kiss of grace. We're told that his body is taken back to the promised land to be buried with his forefathers. And this is an act of faith, Hebrews calls it. in God's promises that he will do what he said. He will give them the land. It's also this foreshadowing. It's beautiful the way Genesis foreshadows Exodus. And you have the body of Jacob, or as he's often called, Israel, being brought out of Egypt. And even the journey they take is kind of weird if you read it, but it's foreshadowing what would happen when the entire nation of Israel would be redeemed out of Egypt and head back to the promised land. On it, it's interesting note, there's horses and chariots that accompany, these Egyptian horses and chariots that accompany Jacob, and it's this procession that is leading them, this great procession. And it's not too much longer in the story when Egyptian horses and chariots will chase the Israelites, right? Seeking to destroy them and enslave them, and instead they are destroyed by God's redemption. And the story of Jacob's life ends for us in verses 12 through 14. He dies. He's buried, but he dies with full faith that God will do what he promised and make his family into a great multitude of nations. And so with the patriarch Jacob dead and gone and off the scene turns to Joseph and his brothers. They return back to Egypt, verse 14 tells us. You heard it read, but in verse 15, Joseph's brothers are concerned that now that our father is dead, Joseph will be out for blood. We saw this pattern with Esau. He actually said, I'm just going to wait until my father's dead, and then I'm going to kill Jacob because I will comfort myself through that death. Now that story ended up in forgiveness as well. But here, Joseph had already forgiven them, but his tearful response when he first met them and his repose of forgiveness from chapter 45 wasn't enough to convince them. They think, well, maybe he was just doing that because our father was alive. The whole emotional reunion maybe was just a farce, and I still have to pay more for my sins. So they send word to Joseph that their father Jacob gave a command before he died. They're still not willing to just ask for forgiveness. They're still kind of conniving. We have no record that Jacob actually said these words. Now, maybe he did. We don't know that he didn't, but most likely the pattern shows like they're probably making this up. And look what they say in verse 17 and 18. They say that Jacob has said this. Say this to Joseph, please forgive, or literally bear, your brother's transgression and their sin, the suffering, that word there is literally raw or evil, that they caused you. Therefore, please forgive the transgression of the servants of the God of your father. Joseph wept when their message came to him. His brothers also came to him, bowed down before him and said, we are your slaves. They again want to relate to Joseph based on a master-servant relationship, not believing that Joseph has actually forgiven them. It is too good to be true. But Joseph doesn't want to be their master. He wants to be family. He wants to be their friend and brother, so much that he weeps. He's not weeping because he's disappointed for himself. He's disappointed for them. Like, he's not the one missing out. He's saying, you're missing out on receiving the freedom that comes from having this grace and taking it and believing it. And how often do we want to relate to God as a master, even though Jesus made it clear in John 15 that he desires to relate to us as a friend? And look at Joseph's beautiful response to them. In verse 19 through 21, I'm going to read it again. Joseph said to them, don't be afraid. Don't be scared. Am I in the place or the stead of God? You planned or literally schemed, devised evil, that's that same word, raw, against me. God devised it, schemed it for good to bring about the present result, the survival, literally the living of many people. That word survival is literally the word life that we see of the tree of life in the garden. For many people, that word people is nations. Therefore, don't be afraid. I will take care. I will sustain you and your children. And he comforted, do you recognize this word? Comforted them and spoke kindly to them. So Joseph starts by saying, don't be afraid. This language is intentionally hearkening our minds back to the garden where we first see fear and shame. When they hide from God, the one they had walked with in the cool of the day as a friend, but now because of sin, I am scared of him. It also reminds us of other patterns in Genesis. This language of don't be afraid is actually most commonly said by God himself or the messenger or angel of God. God talks to his people, Abraham, don't be afraid. Hagar, don't be afraid. Isaac, Jacob, I've got your back. There's no need to fear. And then Joseph goes on to ask a rhetorical question. Am I in the place of God? Like literally translated, am I instead of God or in the stead of God? This is a beautiful inversion of the fall narrative. When humans wanted to become God, tried to be in the stead of God, but here Joseph in his humility says, I am not God. And there's an irony here because as the first humans sought to take God's place, they actually became less godlike, if I can use that word. They reflected less of God's image and beauty by trying to usurp his authority. But here, as Joseph says in humility, as he recognizes I am not God, he actually operates in a more godlike manner. He reflects God. He is foreshadowing the God who we're told in Exodus 34, who gives us his name, and one of God's defining characteristics attached to his name, it's the same language, is that he forgives transgression and rebellion and sin. It is who he is. It is in his nature. It is not against his nature to forgive. It is part of who he is, his name, his identity. And Joseph, by humbling himself before God, acts in accordance with God and reflects the image of God. And then he goes on to tell them that even though they meant evil, they schemed evil, he doesn't diminish their sin. We talked about that before. But even though they did mean that, God was devising tov or goodness in spite of humanity's best efforts to spread evil instead of good. God was still on the move and at work, turning evil to good, chaos to order, darkness to light, ashes to beauty. Truly, as Paul said in Romans, we know that all things work together for the good of those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. Through Joseph's response, we also get a glimpse into what the definition of good is. Good equals life. The survival, literally the living of many nations. That was the goal, for the beauty and goodness of God and life to spread to all people. Sustenance, provision, life, peace, rest, beauty, the best you can imagine. And we get a glimpse of that even in Joseph speaking relief or comfort. That's what that word is, the same one that we were looking for Noah. Could he bring relief from the curse? Joseph speaks that to their hearts. That's literally, he speaks to their hearts. And so he's given us a glimpse and a foreshadowing of the comfort and relief that has been promised for the people of God. And then the story zooms quickly forward from the scene of Jacob's death and the aftermath with Joseph and the brothers to Joseph, who like Jacob, too dies with great faith and encouragement. Look at verses 24 through 26 with me as the brothers gather around. Joseph says to his brothers, I'm about to die, but God will certainly come to your aid, literally surely visit you and bring you up from this land, cause you to ascend to the land he swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So Joseph made the sons of Israel take an oath. When God comes to your aid, you are to carry my bones up from here. Joseph died at the age of 110. They embalmed him, literally put spices on him, and placed him in a coffin in Egypt. Remember, Joseph has been the one to sustain and provide for his brothers and his father the last 17 years, actually more than that now by the time he dies. And now he's about to die. But even so, Joseph ensures them that God will surely visit them, come to their aid. He will show up. He will draw near and fulfill his promise. Like God visited, same word, Sarah in her barrenness. Like God visited Abraham on the mountain with Isaac and provided. Like God visited Jacob when he wrestled him in the night. God will visit them too. And when he does, Joseph says, hey, when he redeems you from Egypt, take my bones with you. This is just simply a symbolic act of faith, just like his father being asked to be buried in the promised land. And this happens in Exodus 13:19. You'll read the summary of redemption from the Exodus story from Egypt, and Moses takes the bones of Joseph with him. Hebrews 11 records this call to take Joseph's bones as an act of faith on his part, as he trusts in the unseen, the bigger picture. I might not know all the details of these promises. I might understand the full concept of the promised land, but I know there's a kingdom whose builder and maker is God. I trust in that. And the story ends with Joseph embalmed in Egypt and placed in a coffin, dead at the age of 110. Robert Alter, the theologian, says this, or the scholar says, this was the ideal Egyptian age considered at this time, the ideal lifespan. And so it's kind of still presenting this to both the Egyptians and even his own brothers. Joseph appears as this almost larger than life divine character. He brings about the redemption of many people. But here's the thing. As awesome as Joseph is, I mean, you read through his story, you're like, man, he's a pretty good dude. Like all humans, it ends with him dead in a coffin, far from the place that his family had been promised. And that's how Genesis closes. That's the end of the story. The Exodus story is set up, and we have the foundation set for the rest of the scriptures. And through this chapter, and again, really throughout the entire book of Genesis, there's a few beautiful truths about God that if we really begin to grasp them, they will transform us. And so I'm going to state these truths for you. The first of which is this: only God is God. Joseph understood that no matter how much power he had been granted, no matter how much salvation had been brought through his hands, ultimately, there is only one true God, Yahweh, and only he is God. When he asked his brothers, am I in the stead of God? He was asking a question we all need to ask ourselves if we think. He's acknowledging a massively important truth. God is the creator, I am not. He is the one who knows and defines what is beautiful and good and right. He is the one who knows what leads to goodness and tov and life. And here's the thing, humans and communities of this age, ourselves included, will often purport to know and attempt to define goodness and beauty and truth. Well, this is what it really is. We'll do this with both our words and our actions, but only God is God. And I think we have to all ask, and I know I have to ask as I'm reading through this, how often does my life, whether my thoughts, my words, my actions, my emotions, betray that I really don't believe this truth? And sometimes, if I'm honest, I don't really like it. How often am I frustrated because I don't agree or like the way my life is turning out? I'm the center of my world. I like things to be in control. And when you come in the way of that, whether it's my kids or you do something I don't like, then my actions reveal, I think I kind of deserve to be in control and have my life undisturbed. How often do I wish God would do things this way or that way? How often do I question God on what he has called good, what he has called evil, to the point that eventually I just want to do what's right in my own eyes? Now, a lot of us, if we've grown up in church, we know like we can't say those things out loud. We can't admit we disagree with God sometimes. And so us good Christian folk, we do something different. We just refashion God into our own image, to the point that he always hates the people you hate and loves the people you love. He always obviously wants our team to win the game, right? I always wonder this when there's good Christians on both sides praying for their team to win the game. I'm like, well, who does God pick, right? He always wants our team to win the game. He would always make the same decisions we would make. He would always put our opinions first, our country first. He would always win our wars and be on our side. And if we're not careful, like before we know it, there's no difference between our wishes and the God we fashion in our own mind. And you realize that when we're doing that, like this is no different. We're still playing God. Whether it's like outright admitted rebellion, like I wish you weren't God, I don't like that, or we just kind of manipulate God to become what we like and what we want, at the end of the day, we're doing the same thing. And this never ends well because only God gets to be God. And instead of trying to figure out if he's on our side, we would probably do a lot better to see if we're really on his. Because if we, like Joseph, are brought to a point where we really believe that God is God, we'll see that it's actually good news because of our second truth, which is this. Yes, only God is God, but God is only good. This is like, and I think sometimes we've heard that God is only God, and we kind of get that. Like, yes, he's big, he's sovereign, and so he's off, and I kind of want to keep him over there because maybe I do admit that I disagree with him, and I know that I'm flawed, so I want to keep him over there. But here's the thing. We have to also believe alongside that God is only good. Joseph told his brothers, you were designing evil, but God was designing good. This is echoing the garden. When God speaks and all he can do, he looks at it and he calls it good, good, good. And if God is only good, then he can only do good things and create good. He only works good. And again, how often does my life believe this? That God will work out good in my lives and situations. And by that, I don't mean that all things are good. There is sin, evil, brokenness in the world, staring us in the face all the time. But it does mean that there has to be some truth, that there's this supernatural way that includes a resurrection someday that will somehow turn it all to good. All the things that are surrendered to a good God will somehow work good and beauty in the end because God can only design and create goodness and beauty. It is his nature. There is no other way he will operate. God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all, not a piece of evil, not a piece of wickedness. He is both sovereign and in control. He alone is God, but he is also altogether good and lovely. And my heart needs to remember this when my circumstances staring me in the face don't seem to be good or are not good. And so these truths held together are amazing, but there's also a little bit of a problem. What about when I'm not good? If I'm not God and I'm not altogether good, and he is, then there is a disconnect that has separated us. That's part of the whole story of not only Genesis, but all of the scriptures. How do failing, flawed humans partner and be in union with God to spread good? And thankfully, there's a third and final truth revealed for us that is incredibly good news. Yes, only God is God. And yes, God is only good. But also we see that God is the only God who became like us so we could become like him. God is the only God who became like us so we could become like him. By saying this, I don't mean that we are become gods or we are divine, but we are partakers in his divine nature, as 1 Peter says. See, the whole story of Genesis begs us to look for the chosen one, the one who will bring relief or comfort from the curse. But all we get are more flawed humans. Again, even the best example we have of Joseph himself ends up dead in a casket, and the cycle of death because of the curse, it continues. I've been thinking about death a lot recently. And it's like we have a lot of cliches when we talk about death, but it's like the one thing no one can avoid. We can kind of clean up our life and put on a mask, but when you face death or you experience death around you, like the masks begin to go away. And so we'll say things to make ourselves feel better, like, death is a part of the natural order, and, it's the circle of life. It's just kind of how things go. And like, I would argue it's not. If we mean natural by the way God designed things to operate, it was never meant to be. Death did not enter till after the fall. It is a cursed thing and something we're not ever meant to be okay with on our own. It is not a reminder of beauty and goodness. It is actually a reminder of darkness and decay and brokenness. It is not what God created and called good. And so even though Joseph is like a beautiful picture of God in many ways, he reflects him, his character. He is not the ultimate savior. He is not God. He can forgive his brothers. He can't give them a new heart that helps them believe that forgiveness is actually real. He can't truly bear their transgressions. We need a greater visitation than just a physical exodus. We need redemption from sin and death itself. And that's who Jesus is. He is the one prophesied of who would come, and he would be pierced to bear, literally forgive our rebellion and transgression. He's the one coming to redeem the true and better Joseph, the final Adam. Isaiah the prophet in chapter 40 prophesies of him and says, comfort ye, the same word, bring relief to my people because someone is coming. And it's this prophecy that obviously is fulfilled in Jesus. And he says, the Lord God himself is coming to visit you. Every other false god says, here's my standard. Now work your way into good standing with me. But the God of the scripture says, you could never earn this, but I will visit you. I will come myself. Zechariah said in Luke 1, and we're told he's filled with the Holy Spirit when he says this. He says, blessed is the Lord, the God of Israel, because he has visited and provided redemption for his people, talking about the birth of Christ. This is the visitation that Joseph was prophesying about, whether he fully knew it or not. God himself has shown up. The Son of God became human so that humans could become sons and daughters of God. And on the cross, Jesus bears the full sin that we've schemed and devised, making his enemies his family. And yes, we schemed and devised it. The other day, one of my daughters hit my other daughter and hurt her, yes, worse than she probably intended to. And so one of my daughters had, red marks on her stomach. And so I showed the results of her sin to the other daughter. I'm trying to not use their names. And she goes, I didn't mean to. I said, yes, you did. Like, you meant to inflict pain. For some reason, you lashed out and you thought that was deserved. Whether you had been hurt or you had felt pain, you meant to inflict pain. Maybe not that much, but you meant to hurt her. And so we still walked through forgiveness, but we acknowledged it. Like we schemed, we devised evil, whether we want to admit it or not. And what Jesus does is he bears that sin, and that's why we can be called enemies in one breath and family the next because of the work of Christ. He bears the curse on himself. He takes our rebellion and transgression and forgives us, not holding it over us. And just like Joseph, he ends up dead in a grave. But unlike Joseph, there's no need for someone to come carry his bones when redemption is accomplished, because he's the one who gets up out of the grave and leads captivity captive and leads the redemption procession himself. He is not dead. There's no need to put spices on his body and embalm it. They come and try to, but he is not here, for he is risen. And so his death brings about the survival or the living of people from every nation, tribe, and tongue. He's referred to as the first fruits. That means there's much more to come afterwards. He's leading a harvest of many people. And somehow, like in the story of Joseph, he turns the darkest day in history to a moment of incredible salvation and beauty. Though the enemy schemed and planned to destroy, he was crushed by the victorious work of Christ. And he takes the cross, this instrument devised to torture and kill what he meant for evil. And somehow God turns it into an instrument of restoration and life. And he brings beauty. It's why we're still singing songs about it years later. And so the invitation to all, no matter who you are, is to simply trust and believe. What's the work we're supposed to do? They asked Jesus. Believe on the one he sent. Believe on the one who became like you so you could become like him. And what happens is the great exchange, as it's been called. We receive his goodness for our evil. We receive his life in exchange for our death. We receive his righteousness for our sin. And we're told that when that happens, like, this is the Bible. He removes the sin as far as the east is from the west and remembers it no more. And sometimes we're like, no, that's too good to be true. I don't know, like, man, we might take advantage of his grace. It's the Bible. If God himself, the one who is God, forgets your sin, why would you keep reminding yourself of it? God is God. So when he declares you good and righteous, it's done. It's his declaration. No one else gets to tell you who you are. No one. And this is good news. And I love it because he leaves, Jesus leaves, and it's like, hey, it's better for me to leave because I'm giving you my Spirit. And who is the Spirit? The one who comforts, who brings relief to our souls. The one who meets us. And if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. Where you might be in the deepest parts of your pain and agony and darkness and death, and he'll whisper to us. And sometimes because I'm stubborn, he like shouts it to me or like slaps me in the face with it and is like, God is good. He is God. You are his. There's no reason to fear. Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed. Walk with me. Work with me. Learn how I do it. Abide in me. You are united to me. Walk in that. The curse has been born. There's no more left to bear, so quit trying. He will work all things together for good and beauty. And as our hearts believe this, like Joseph, we become transformed as we believe that we are not God. And that's actually good news. When we believe that God is only good and we look at the cross and we can say, we can trust that. He gave us himself. We actually become more like him. Again, not God, but God-like, reflecting him. That's why read the New Testament. What does it say? We become like Christ, Christ-like, Christians, little Christ. Not perfectly, but together and being sanctified and growing towards that, we become more fully human, like it was meant to be, imaging God, bringing life and beauty. And not because we earn or strive or work really hard, but because we surrender fully to the one true God who saved us by grace alone. And so my prayer for all of you, wherever you're at today, whether maybe this is the first time you feel like your heart is believing these truths or the millionth, like my prayer is that this story and all the stories in Genesis remind you that God will be faithful to keep his promises. He will visit you at the time appointed. Maybe not the time you want or the time I want, but at the time appointed. And he will make all things new. I'll be honest, I don't have a ton of hope to give you in this life. I mean, I do, but it's a future hope, like a sure hope that will come, a living hope that does affect this life and breaks forth into the present. But if we just have hope in this life only, as Paul says, we're of all men most miserable. I've said it before, wrap it up, go home. There's no need to be here. I could be sleeping in. I was at the ball fields late. I'm not here just because it's something nice to do and start my week off on the right note. I start my week off better sleeping in till 12 p.m. I'm not judging you if you do that. If you're watching online, I'm sorry. My point is all this is because there's a future resurrection, and I promise it will be worth it. The destination will be so grand that the hardships of this journey will seem like a light momentary affliction, as Paul calls it. And he's not saying that to make light of your affliction. He's saying as deep as it is, as crushing as it is right now, that's how magnificent and glorious the end is. As deep as the pain is now, so much greater will the joy be that awaits. So unlike the Miley Cyrus song, I have no idea why this song kept coming to my brain. It is about what's waiting on the other side. It is, because what's waiting on the other side is a good God himself, final, everlasting union with him. The end of the story is one of life and beauty and goodness and redemption. And really, it will only be the beginning of the most beautiful story ever told. I'm going to end with C.S. Lewis. This will be better than Miley Cyrus. So here it is. This is the end. I'm reading this and then we're done. C.S. Lewis says this in the last battle in the Chronicles of Narnia at the end of the story. He says, we can most truly say that they all lived happily ever after. But for them, it was only the beginning of the real story. All their life in this world and all their adventures in Narnia had only been the cover and the title page. Now at last, they were beginning chapter 1 of the great story which no one on earth has read, which goes on forever, in which every chapter is better than the one before. And we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun. no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. God will visit us, church. He will turn what was designed for evil into a beautiful good beyond comparison for his glory and for our good. Won't he do it?